Welcome to Mac Talk, a Middle Tennessee podcast from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm your announcer, Kennedy Alpin. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chef's Market, one of Middle Tennessee's most popular restaurants.
Thank you, Kennedy, and welcome everyone to Mac Talk. I'm your host, John Pitcher. We like to think of the Mac as a cultural town square where we encourage everyone to be their creative best. So, Kennedy, the 98th Academy Awards are coming up this weekend. Are any of your favorite movies up for Best Picture?
I've honestly been really bad about watching movies this year, but I have heard really good things about Sinners. Especially with it being a horror movie, the fact that it's up for a ton of Oscars is crazy.
Well, it's up for 16 Oscars.
Yeah.
What's really, really strange is that we've actually got a couple of horror movies up there, like Frankenstein as well. And of course, Sinners has Ryan Coogler as the director, who also did Black Panther.
Yes.
So probably the best Marvel comic of all time. And as you said, Michael B. Jordan is the lead actor in Sinners. I also thought it was kind of cool that we had two foreign films as Best Picture. There's The Secret Agent, and we had Sentimental Value. So I think we've got some really good stuff coming up.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think I'm going to probably go with Sinners. Simply because it's directed by Ryan Coogler, because it's got Michael B. Jordan in it.
I think Michael B. Jordan is why it's going to win a bunch of stuff.
I think it's because of both the director,
the director and Michael B. Jordan,
and just the fact that
the costuming is fantastic. The soundtrack is fantastic.
It's got a huge amount of buzz, and I think that's what I'm going to be looking for.
Make the people happy. Let a horror movie win. Come on.
Yeah, I'm looking for that.
Make me in particular happy.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's ask today's guest about all of this, because she knows a thing or two about movies. Stephanie Silverman has been the executive director of the Belcourt Theater for nearly 20 years. The Belcourt is a 3-screen, nonprofit film center dedicated to presenting the best in contemporary and repertory cinema. Housed in a restored 1925 neighborhood theater in the heart of Nashville, the Belcourt has been recognized as a national model for sustainable art house theaters by its peers and industry leaders. Stephanie's success hasn't gone unnoticed. The Nashville Scene named her as its Nashvillian of the Year in 2016. We're thrilled that Stephanie is here to speak with us about the independent film industry in Nashville. We might even get a few Oscar predictions from her. Stephanie Silverman, welcome to Mac Talk.
Thanks for having me.
This is really wonderful. Well, you grew up in Omaha, which is a city I know well and love. I was at the Omaha World Herald at one point.
Wow,
I was one of their
really?
arts writers. I loved that entire region. We lived right next to Fontenelle Forest.
Oh, beautiful.
So, yeah, the Missouri River is just absolutely gorgeous. You also have a background in performing arts, as I understand it.
That's right.
How did you find your way into the indie movie theater business?
It was a circuitous path.
Okay.
But I have been sort of in the arts my entire life. My mom was in the Omaha Symphony. She was a viola player in the symphony there. She also ran the Suzuki violin program in Omaha in the early days. So I started as a young little violinist. Ended up going away to a school for the performing arts in high school called the North Carolina School for the Arts, now called the University of North Carolina School for the Arts, and played the violin, but was starting to realize that the violin wasn't really my very favorite thing to do. And as you know from covering classical music for a long time, you gotta really love playing classical music to practice and be as disciplined to have the quality for a career. So I moved into the theater program there and ended up doing some acting for a while, but really also felt drawn to arts organizations. And I, my mother was had suggested at one point, well, there is a field called arts administration if you ever, want to explore that. And really just through a series of meeting people and organizations that had needs. I started working for a small performing arts organization, and it grew to the next organization and the next organization. But I'd always been in the performing arts in a lot of contemporary dance organizations. And so when I moved to Nashville, this Belcourt position had just come open, and it felt different but corollary. The same challenges exist when you're trying to build audience for contemporary dance as when you're trying to build audiences for independent cinema. You've got great stories, great artists, but maybe not artists who roll off the tip of everyone's tongue. It may not be posters you recognize every time when you walk down the street in front of the Belcourt. So it felt like the challenges were the same, and so that I was bringing relevant experience, but I did have to completely learn the film industry, which is very much its own beast and quite different from the performing arts world.
Wow. Well, you obviously learned it pretty quickly, and I think Nashville lucked out in you guys coming here, because look at the Belcourt now. You made your mark very quickly. I mean, you became Nashvillian of the Year from the Nashville scene. How cool is that?
It was pretty cool. One of the things that I really love about Nashville, and we see this in a lot of the great press outlets, we've certainly felt that at the Belcourt, is that there's still a lot of good writing about creative work in this town and about arts work, and the scene is so central to that. So to be honored by them really did mean the world.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, obviously this place has really blossomed under your leadership here. Why are indie theaters important? What do we get out of a place like the Belcourt that we don't get out of the chains like Regal or whatever?
Right. You know, it's funny. I frequently sort of remind people that we don't ever imagine music to be in a one-size-fits-all venue, right? You're there. You have a symphony in a symphony hall. You have a Bridgestone Arena. You have a Bluebird. You have the Jazz Cavern. You have all of these different kinds of spaces where you go and experience music in different settings, in different environments, with different audience engagement. And it is funny to me that we decided that for film, it should just always be in the same kind of place, that the commercial cinemas were the model, and kind of a one-size-fits-all stop for film. And I think what independents have really brought to the table, particularly in the last 20 years, is this sense of film plus, right? That there's a real wraparound care that comes with the programming. First of all, that the programming is done very intentionally. So we have a curation team led by Toby Leonard, who's here in Nashville, on the ground, working with their community every day. So the films are programmed really in conversation with the city that we're serving, which is very different from the top-down studio delivery model that you get in the chains, which also has its place. But it allows us to really look at programming and marketing and audience building from the community up kind of point of view. And I think that changes the relationship for Nashvillians and for others in the region who come to the Belcourt with the storytelling itself. Then they feel like they're in a home, they feel like they're in a place that is curious and supportive and taking risks in ways that are going to pay off for them in the long run.
Wow. I remember being in a panel discussion. It's probably 20 years ago. It was here, and we were talking about arts journalism, and one of the other panelists was at the time, the executive editor of the Tennessean, and a very different paper then than it is now. And he said, but we were already bemoaning the decline of arts journalism in the big dailies, the big metros. And he made a statement that to this day I still don't quite understand, but he said something like, well, I think the newspaper industry should have invented Google. And that would have been the business model. An interesting idea, but I'm wondering actually if what the newspaper should have done is look at the independent movie theaters and maybe follow that model. Because actually that is what they're doing now. Increasingly, they're going in that more of that nonprofit model. I guess, newspapers, if you go back to the 1980s or 90s, they were just these incredibly profitable slush fund organizations, and the idea that they were going to be anything other, they had a hard time with their, switching their thinking. But it seems to me like you guys have done pretty well. because it's a very flexible business model.
That's right. And it allows you to take risk where you need to with a level of underwriting and subsidy through the contributions part of our financials that is, just gives you a more steady state business. It's not as mercurial. The other thing that I think is really powerful about the nonprofit model for independent cinemas and for anything else that figures out how to make it work for them, because I personally think the nonprofit model is one of the superpowers in the United States, both in the human services sector, in the medical sector, in the arts sector. It is not something that is mirrored exactly when you go to Europe or to other countries, but there's real curiosity there now, because even in places where there used to be good government subsidies for work, those are changing over time. And so our abilities to sustain ourselves through being both an institution that cares about earning money, that cares about selling tickets, that cares about generating revenue, but also that is shored up by our own community and our and donors who want to make sure that we're protected and can do the work that we need to do. It's really kind of the magic 1-2 punch that can keep us thriving, because it costs a lot of money to keep a venue open, to keep projectors running, to keep seats repaired, to keep the plumbing rolling, to repair, to fix, where it's funny, we're coming up on the 10-year mark from our renovation at the Belcourt and stuff's wearing out. It's so that we have to continue to replace, repair, and movie theaters can be a place of deferred maintenance in a way that's really terrible. So we don't have to be in that position, because we have the ability to reach out to the donor side of our world for support when maybe the revenue side, the ticket sales side of the world wouldn't have completely made that possible.
We're speaking with Belcourt Theater Executive Director Stephanie Silverman. We'll be back after this important message.
Chef's Market is a strong supporter of arts education. That's because the arts foster creativity, critical thinking, and emotional expression. Students engaged in the arts often perform better academically and develop a lifelong appreciation for learning. This message was brought to you by Chef's Market. With Chef's Market, it's not just food, it's an experience. For more information, go to chefsmarket.com.
We're back with the Belcourt Theater's Executive Director, Stephanie Silverman. Okay. Well, speaking of business models, let's also talk about the programming behind the business model, because I think a lot of people think of independent theaters, or they think of art house theaters. They're thinking of maybe some kinds of foreign films like a Truffaut's 400 Blow or Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. But a big part of what indie theaters do now, and I'm beginning to see this a lot with the chains as well, is relying on repertory film. And I've noticed you guys have, coming up everything from Jurassic Park to Twin Peaks.
Yep.
So, tell me a little bit about that part of the model and how that works for you guys.
Yeah, it's been, from the earliest days, the film program that we have had here has always involved repertory. But its importance and honestly its popularity has grown over time. We've seen a profound change as we've come out of COVID, even seen audience changes in their sort of enthusiasm for repertory programming. So right now, if you looked at a list of films for any given year, it's about 50% first run and 50% repertory films. The first runs get more screenings, right? So when we open something like Marty Supreme or Hamnet, those as part of your agreement with the studio, those run 4 to 5 times a day on a clean schedule, 7 days a week. That's sort of the deal. So the repertory is a little more vibrantly placed throughout the weekly schedule.
Right.
But honestly, we are just thrilled to see the number of sellouts we have for our repertory screenings, the amount of enthusiasm there is to see work that people have absolutely seen before. It's not, this is the sort of like, anybody can watch anything on their small screen. Well, they have watched it on their small screen, and now they want to see it as it was intended. So I think one of the coolest things that we're seeing is younger audiences for repertory. And that's, sort of the 18 and up kind of community. Even my son and his friends are, when they were here, now they're all off at college, but when they were here as high school juniors and seniors and back out in the world, we're here a lot watching repertory films. So I think it is a bit of a byproduct of a whole generation of people who were trapped at home in front of devices. And the benefit for us is that they want to be out in community and watching these films together. So I think repertory is also where you see us like flex the curation muscle the best. We have really good film programmers here. And so when we roll out like, a big series like our 1999 series last year or others, it's just
1999 being the great year for movies.
A great year for movies, right? It was just
from my generation. My parents and people always talk about 1939.
Yeah,
Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. And 1999 though has got its own big list.
It was remarkable. Even when Toby who is our head programmer, put together the starting list of films that he had to pare down from. Sometimes he'll pass it around the office and people check off like, yes, this one, and then he takes it and forms it into something, and you don't always get your choices, but it's a fun exercise because you really do forget until you see it in that concentrated way what these great windows of filmmaking delivered to the culture, So it's really, I think, one of our hallmarks is the classics programming and how important it feels to modern audiences.
Okay.
And that's why the chains are doing it, because they see how much money we make on it. They're copying us.
No, I got dragged to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the other side of that equation, there are the new releases.
Yeah.
But you guys have a little more flexibility, don't you, when it comes to that? You don't just have to do Tom Holland's Spider-Man or the biggest thing. You guys have coming out Harry Leighton's Pillion, which is a fascinating film. You've got Liner Palmat Mason's The Love That Remains, which looks really fascinating. What's your approach to that, to the new releases? Because you guys are obviously going to be more, you're looking for things that are different, right? More like just like the alternative newspaper, the Nashville Scene is going to be looking for something a little bit different in country music. You'll look for something more different in film. Is that right?
Right, that's it. I mean, we sort of look at it and go, well, does this film need us? Right? Like we have 3 screens. We don't have 27 or 16 and so we have to choose what goes in them carefully, because especially if something does well, it's going to stay on our screens for many weeks on the first run side of things. So, an example I often point to is during the big Barbenheimer craze a few summers ago, right? We did not show Barbie, though a lot of our independent colleagues did. Also, everyone was coming out of COVID and finances were finances and you wanted to sell some tickets. No judgment. But we did show Oppenheimer, but we showed it on 35 millimeter, which is something we're the only theater in this region that is exhibiting films on film. And so so we could sort of lean into this more commercial title because it had an interesting format choice. It was going to be on lots of other screens, but it still felt special to see here. Sometimes it's just because it's a filmmaker who we've loved and who's all of their earlier films, as they've been growing and maturing as a filmmaker, we have shown, like something like Marty Supreme, this, being a Safdie brother. We've shown all the Safdie brothers films. And Chloe Zhao too is another. So a lot of times it's a formula that's a little bit of a gut choice, where we go, oh, that film feels like it could actually use our help in building audiences, or a Spider-Man film that doesn't need us at all. It's going to come out of the gate, guns a-blazing and do great business in the chain colleagues. And that's why there should be 2 of us, right? I think we try and think about working in concert with our commercial colleagues versus being in competition with them.
Right. And I would imagine that those kinds of films do very well here.
They do.
Because, there is an audience for them, and this is the kind of place that the audience comes to.
Yeah, they do. And sometimes you really do kind of see that they are helped by being here. So a film like Hamnet, we opened that on November 26th, and it was here until February 22nd because it just grew and grew and grew. The audience, it was a word of mouth film. It, came from a reasonably large studio, but it didn't come out of the gate a guaranteed success. It needed care and tending, it needed marketing and audience development. And it's when you see that happen, it's really exciting because it does feel like we contributed to the larger life of this film in our little slice of the world.
Right. Well, I mentioned to you when we first ran each other this morning that I hear you sometimes on Kai Ryssdal's Marketplace on APM, National Public Radio. I see you quoted in the New York Times. So there's a lot of attention at the Belcourt, nationally. But I'm wondering, what are the things that maybe make this particular independent theater different from a lot of your colleagues? And one thing I'm wondering about is just music. You guys show some really interesting music films. And this is Music City.
Yeah.
You have one coming up, which is all centered around Keith Jarrett's great jazz concert at the Cologne Opera House in 1975. And it's like, I just saw that and I was like, oh my God, somebody's actually made a film for me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
A total music geek who would actually care about Keith Jarrett's piano and how it got tuned, Yeah. So, but still, that seems unusual to have that much really good regular attention to music.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, hat tip to the programming team. I think we have always cared about being in this city, right? So a lot of theaters like ours, a lot of independents, work with really good, really smart, really thoughtful outside bookers, but they're not people who necessarily live in their town. They're not in conversation with their communities. And they're mostly bringing in the first run content. But our programming team is fully just here in Nashville, focused only on the Belcourt and the work of the Belcourt for our community. And so, several years ago now, Toby, of course, no surprise to anybody, Monday nights are not the biggest night for movie going, right? It's like after the weekend, people are starting their weeks. And so it was always a slow night for us. And so, but we have had great success in sort of constructing series frameworks about things that can kind of carry a concept forward, like our Weekend Classic series, or, certainly in the shorter form series. But he started this program called Music City Mondays, and it started with a lot of music docs, and it's evolved into being. Maybe it's a film with just a great score. Maybe it is a music doc. Maybe it's an actor who's really a musician who's making his acting debut. It's quite flexible in its framing, but it's grown to be a little powerhouse.
It is brilliant. And I just absolutely love it.
People love it. Yeah.
You've got the anniversary showing of Koyaanisqatsi coming up.
Yeah.
I could only imagine if my great friend Jim Ridley were still here. I think he was agnostic when it came to Philip Glass and his music generally.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he thought that Philip Glass's soundtracks were something out of the Dante's Inferno. But I, on the other hand, am totally the opposite because I'm one of the music guys. I'm not the film guy like Jim. I absolutely think it's amazing, and it's a brilliant thing to have on Music City Mondays.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That is so incredibly cool.
Yeah. No, it's a series that we love dearly and has just found this little niche in a way that's really meaningful and something we're proud of.
It is, and it says Nashville. I mean, it means
totally.
that you guys actually know your community and you care about it.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I think is true about Nashville, and I hear this everywhere, and it's one of the advantages that the music groups have in Nashville, is that so many people have come here to be musicians. They didn't necessarily go into the music business, but they know music and they love music.
Yeah.
And so there's your audience.
I mean, I really credit a lot of our success over the years just in direct alignment with Nashville's growth. And I think that is, and it's frankly a community I'm concerned for as we continue to grow. But I think it's been driven by the creative community who's moving here, who, when they land in a town, especially if they came from another big urban center like New York or Boston or LA, they look and say, where's my art house? We've had companies bring recruits in to show them the theater when they're trying to get people to move here for work. We do become a recruitment tool because we echo an experience that is important to people. So, I really can't overstate how lucky I think we are. I mean, the Belcourt's growth has been quite tied to Nashville's growth.
Oh, right.
So that we kind of are in that sweet spot of feeling like an authentically Nashville institution that can still benefit from a lot of the new Nashville growth, I think has been really lucky for us.
Well, speaking of Nashville, speaking of growth, this might not be as much of an independent theater question, but I know it was one that Jim Ridley was really focused on for a long time. He was very interested in what Nashville could do to attract more filmmaking here.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where that might stand today, because I mean, you've had filmmaking in places like Atlanta and around the region. How does Nashville rate as a locale for filmmaking?
I think it's gotten better over the years. Certainly, the depth has improved in terms of crew concentration, the number of people who are here and skilled, and you see that in shows like Scarpetta being shot here. Certainly, the television show Nashville being here. That has helped build a bench, and people can live here and work regionally. I think, though, there is extraordinary opportunity to go further, and I'm on the Nashville Entertainment Commission, which is a newer initiative of the city's. We're in the middle of hopefully hiring an executive director whose lens is the entire entertainment industry, but in part that is focusing on film, on really having a robust permitting and locations kind of directory for people to make the approach into Nashville an easy and friendly one for filmmakers. Because the thing we don't have in great amounts, we have a limited incentive package that's available to filmmakers in the state, but we're not Georgia, and we're never going to be Georgia in terms of the incentive. So then you have to figure out other ways that make a city or a region appealing to filmmakers. So I'm excited about what's possible. I think there's a lot of room for growth.
We're speaking with Belcourt Theater Executive Director Stephanie Silverman. We'll be back after this important message.
Chef's Market reminds us that the arts help build well-rounded communities. Art programs promote education, economic growth, and emotional well-being. Interested in expanding your own creative horizons? Check out the Max Spring Art Classes. Go to monthavenarts.org/classes for more information.
We're back with the Belcourt Theater's Executive Director, Stephanie Silverman. As Executive Director of an indie movie theater house, what are the kinds of things that you worry about? I would imagine you must worry a little bit about streaming and the effect of that. One thing that I worry about, just as someone who cares about democracy in general, is all of the consolidation I'm seeing in media right now. You have like Paramount Skydance looking to take over Warner Brothers. You have Amazon and Apple and the big tech, mastodons coming in, starting to do their thing. There are issues with, artificial intelligence and protection of intellectual property. What are the sort of things that you worry about?
I definitely worry about consolidation. Because what I really worry about is, and we've seen it, happening over the last many years, is the squeezing out of the mid-size film, which is typically sort of where our first run community of filmmakers is making films. They're not making $200 million films. They're making $25 million films, $40 million films, sometimes a $10 million, $5 million, $2 million film. But those guys can get really pushed to the edges, at least in the studio system, as things start to squeeze in and all these studios consolidate into one business. And a lot of promises get made when these mergers are happening, trying to get the government to approve them. there is a difference in the number of films that are being delivered to theaters post the Disney Fox merger. So, it's just evidence on the ground. So it worries me. It also doesn't worry me for the survival of the Belcourt, because we've built a programming model that is flexible, right? So if we're leaning more into repertory, we're leaning more into repertory. We are programming more titles per year, every year, than we ever have before, because, we may not have as many movies that are parked here for a month or 2 months on screen every day. So it's a challenge for the programming team, for sure. But, I think we're in a good position to weather it. It's just for the larger filmmaking community, those lost opportunities concern me in terms of the next generation of storytellers. I also, just in general, and this is true of everyone that's working in creative sectors, I worry about the middle class artist, because again, I think that a lot of those people are making the films that we show, right? They're not big, famous Hollywood directors, but they also shouldn't always be living paycheck to paycheck, having to take out credit cards to finance their films. I am concerned that we do not have a generation of people who are just good middle-class working artists who can make a living, send their kids to school, be creative, get good stories on screens, get good music on stages, whatever it is. So I have a larger concern about that. And in cities like Nashville that are built on creative communities, a lot of that goes to civic structure. Where's the housing? Are there artists at every table being part of decision making? I worry about that just for the creative community writ large, not just the filmmaking community.
Or maybe just your staff, right?
Completely.
Because affordable housing affects everybody.
Our staff, from the, everybody, front of house team, projection team, the administrative team, people used to live close to the theater, right? They'd live off 12 South. They'd live around Hillsborough Village, and they've just gotten pushed further and further and further and further outside the city. And largely, especially in the front of house team, they all have creative jobs. This is just filler, right, for them. Right. When they're not on tour, when they're not making art, when they're not, engaged in their creative discipline. So, it's been exciting to see the growth, but there are ramifications, and we see it in real life in our building.
Right. Well, one extremely cool thing about the Belcourt, because we have the Oscars are right around the corner, and you guys are screening all sorts of things, the shorts, you have the Best Picture screenings. Yep. Are you hearing any Oscar buzz for this year?
I think we're all pretty excited, because we feel like, we've basically most of these movies have been on our screens, which is not always true every year. Sometimes that slate comes out and we're like, oh, none of these movies were Belcourt movies. But this is a kind of an unusual year in some ways, right? It is.
I mean, how often do like Frankenstein and vampires and Supernatural end up being Best Picture nominees? I can't think.
Not really. And then
so we're talking about Sinners, and we're talking about Frankenstein.
Right.
It's just.
And then the auteur thing, right, that you have One Battle After Another, PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson's film, Chloe Zhao's new film. So you're getting like a kind of a cool, diverse mix of filmmaking styles and strategies. I mean, Ryan Coogler came so profoundly from the independent filmmaking side of things, and now really is one of the most remarkable filmmakers working today on huge scales, right? I mean, to my mind, has made the best Marvel movie of all time.
Right. Yeah. So he's got Black Panther behind it, but he's also got Sinners, which has 16 nominations?
Yes.
It's got to win something,
and they just won a bunch of the SAG Awards, which it was great to see Michael B. Jordan get his props, because it's a remarkable performance.
It is.
So I just am excited, because I think it's been a year of really fun, really good films, and that's so satisfying to get to celebrate. It's also just fun to be in a room of people like literally cheering on the film they loved the most and really wanting it to win. And it's just a pretty special night to just be around people who just want to talk movies a bunch.
Okay. Well, just one last question. I appreciate you taking so much time with us. What's coming up at the Belcourt that you're really excited about? What's the one thing?
It's so hard to identify a one thing because, every week it's different here.
Right.
So I think the thing that I most appreciate about the Belcourt is that if you log in to our website on any Friday to start making your plan for the weekend, you're going to find something cool.
Yeah.
There's going to be a variety of stuff. It's going to change constantly. You're going to be sitting in a room with a different group of people every time, but it is 100% a room full of people who are excited about letting those lights go down and hearing that projector kick on. Mm-hmm. So I think just in general, it's just, for me, the most satisfying thing is to just see the parking lot full from my office,
right,
and a lobby packed with people who are just eager to sink in and lose themselves for a little while in another world.
Wow. Well, Stephanie Silverman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
This is nice.
You've been listening to Mac Talk from Mont Haven Arts and Cultural Center. Our mission is to educate, elevate, and encourage our community through the transformative power of the arts. If you're interested in transforming your creative life, check out our website at monthavenarts.org. Our guest today was Stephanie Silverman, Executive Director of Nashville's Belcourt Theater. Our podcast music was written by Nashville composer Christina Spinay. I'm Kennedy Alpin. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.